Well, surprise, surprise, Iran has lied about their missile capabilities. They previously have said that they were only capable of about 1,200 miles, roughly, like give or take. Turns out they were capable of about twice that distance at least once. They shot 2 missiles at a famous joint US-UK base over in the Indian Ocean. Neither of which made it the full 2,500 miles, one of which barely made it 100 miles. So anyway, needless to say, England has already surrendered to their Iranian overlords for fear that London will get hit with a missile. And the US is not really all that happy about it. So before we start, make sure that you subscribe to my channel, like the video, comment your favorite part, and let's get into it. Turns out they're able to fire about 4,000 kilometers roughly, which is about 2,500 miles for anybody that's not a communist. Which is very bad, particularly for people in Europe, particularly for people in Eastern Africa, and particularly for people in Asia, because that means that Iran is able to lob a ballistic missile at Paris, at London, at Moscow, anywhere in fucking Ukraine, right? They could hit anybody in India. They could hit probably... yeah, there's a lot of fucking places that they could hit, okay? This is a problem mostly because everyone's been bitching about, oh, Iran was never a threat. Iran was never going to be able to do anything. Well, come to find out, I guarantee you that the United States military fucking knew their real capabilities, and now that it's been showcased, the EU knows their real capabilities too. And let's find out whether or not they're actually going to come in and help us secure the Strait of Hormuz, or if we're going to do it ourselves and then charge them a fucking tax to use it when we're done. So this is the Aviationist. This is I don't know. They're reporting that Iran fires 2 intercontinental ballistic missiles. Intermediate range ballistic missiles. Excuse me, I'm used to the American terminology where shit matters and works. So they fired 2 intermediate range ballistic missiles at the Diego Garcia base. So that is a joint US-UK base in the Indian Ocean, somewhere near the Chagos Archipelago, where I've already covered the United States has sent naval convoys. So the attempted strike on the Diego Garcia would mark a major escalation, highlighting Tehran's ability, or apparent ability, to target the strategic US-UK base deep in the Indian Ocean and potentially put parts of Europe within reach. So it was a potential strike. They didn't actually do it. The problem with this is that they were able to reach that distance. It's not that they actually hit anything, not that they would have hit anything, but the fact that they were able to get that distance. We don't know how yet, but we'll see. So Iran has launched 2 missiles at the joint UK-US base at Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, about 4,000 kilometers away. Such distance is well within the range, separating Tehran from many European capitals. Many European capitals, okay, are within 4,000 kilometers of Tehran. According to U.S. officials who talked to the Wall Street Journal, 1 ballistic missile reportedly failed because of a malfunction and did not reach the base. So they sent 2. One of them just kind of fucked off and kind of went limp dick midair, right, and just fell. And the other one... well, let's find out what happened to it. Whilst the other one was engaged by a U.S. destroyer utilizing SM-3 interceptor missiles, right? So they intercepted it from missiles off of a U.S. destroyer ship. It wasn't even like a base that it passed by. A ship shot this bitch out of the sky. Neither of the missiles hit the base. Still, regardless of the outcome of the attack, the attempted strike with the intermediate range ballistic missile marks a potential turning point in the conflict. The choice of target is a telling signal. The United Kingdom has just decided to grant the United States the use of its bases for the strikes. So the US is now going to use UK bases to start lobbing missiles and shit over there. And Iran is kind of pissed about it, so they decided to strike, or try and strike, a joint base, okay? The Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi announced have therefore become legitimate targets. Okay, interesting. Until now, it's been believed that the intermediate range missiles available to Tehran were capable of only striking a distance of up to 2,000 kilometers. The decision to launch against the Diego Garcia base points a significant the greater capabilities in the weapons still available to the Islamic Republic. I don't think there are that many. I think this was just a kind of last-minute attempt for kind of a show of force. So this right here shows a map of what they are and are not able to actually strike. So this is 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers away from Iran. Okay, so even if they don't have the 4,000 kilometer that they were trying to reach, which they do, it actually goes out a little farther than this. But this is apparently 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers away. So this is like a circle that they would be able to reach. You can see Ukraine, all of Russia's in here. I bet Moscow's in there somewhere. I don't know what Kazakhstan is. All of the Gulf states, like all the Gulf countries. It would be pretty bad. This here is the Diego Garcia. It's basically just a small island that's used for a naval port for kind of resupplying and stuff. The U.S. and Israeli raids have significantly reduced Iran's missile launching capabilities. According to figures cited in recent days, the U.S. President Donald Trump, Tehran has retained only about 8% of its original capability. It is estimated that but before the conflict began, Tehran had at least 1,000 to maybe 1,500 missiles. Among them, the Sumar has a range that is, in any case, below 3,000. Saji missiles can strike targets at a distance of about 2,000 kilometers. Shahad drones, or Shahid or whatever the hell, drones, can also be used in medium to long range raids, considering that they can operate up to 1,700 meters for the launch. So they had a lot of missiles. However, a lot of them were only up to maybe 3,000, right? So a whole lot of the Western countries that are in Europe didn't really have all that much to worry about because they were just outside of their reach. Well, now with this, it comes to find out that they actually can reach those countries, okay? So, though officially a British territory and British base, Diego Garcia is predominantly used by U.S. forces, alongside communications and intelligence gathering facilities, both of which were major justifications for establishing this permanent military outpost in the Indian Ocean. Diego Garcia's airfield is one of only 3 locations outside of the continental U.S. equipped with dedicated hangar facilities for the B-2 Spirit bomber. Okay? We can store the Black Doritos at this base, and it's probably one of the only ones that we can do that at that isn't on the continental US, which is fucking wild because I didn't even know that. In 2025, the base saw its first known fighter deployment of the F-15E Strike Eagles. The base has been at the center of dispute earlier this year over the Diego Garcia military base and the British Indian Ocean Territory Bill, which intended to formalize and, in essence, ratify a deal signed between the UK, and Mauritius in May 2025 that would see sovereignty of the British Indian Ocean Territory ceded to Mauritius in return for a 99-year guaranteed lease of Diego Garcia for continued military use. So they would give the base to somebody else, not that that matters. All right, so anyway, yeah. Iran decided to fire fucking missiles at a joint U.S. and U.K. military base. And it's not fucking good. So the U.K. decided to come out, and this is The Guardian reporting that UK Foreign Secretary condemns Iran's quote-unquote reckless threats after strike towards, because they didn't strike it, they just kind of lobbed a missile at it, and we noticed and shot it down. So the Foreign Secretary has condemned Iran's strikes on the joint U.S.-UK military base on the island of Diego Garcia, while stressing the UK has, quote, taken a different position from the U.S. and Israel. They're coming out cuck bitch style saying, why are you firing missiles at us? We're not part of this. Your enemy is only the U.S. and Israel. We've taken a different position. We're on your side. Don't fire at us. Yvette Cooper said the ministers wanted to see a swift resolution to the war, adding the government was supporting defensive action against the reckless Iranian threats. We are going to defend ourselves despite the fact that we were originally on your side. So Iran is fucking up more by making more and more enemies. I don't think they understood that most of the Western countries were against the U.S. and Israel going in and doing this. And as time progresses, more and more Western countries and even more Middle Eastern countries are becoming supportive of this fucking effort. And the more they try and show power, the more they lose. It's fucking crazy. So, like I said, Tehran fired 2 intermediate range ballistic missiles at the Chagos Island, but neither of them hit. So, let's see, where's the point that I wanted to make here? All right, yeah, I'm not going to read all of this, but I wanted to point out that the UK foreign minister came out cuck bitch style and started like saying, oh, why are you fighting us? Oh, we're not your enemies. Oh, and then they started to pretend like they're going to actually fight back, right? So anyway, we're going to see, this is live now from Fox. This is on YouTube. Again, we really like covering these guys because they never copyright strike me, which is fucking awesome. So definitely subscribe to them. Definitely like their videos. Their video will be in the description of my video. Definitely subscribe to me while you were doing it. We recently hit 100 subscribers, and that is far too low. So let's get that number up a little bit, right? Let's get me monetized so I can start caring about being copyrighted. Okay, let's go. Let's see what they have to say about Iran firing 2 missiles at the Diego Garcia, which is the first attack that has happened outside of the Middle East. Iran is doing whatever they can to drag as many people into this battle as possible to try and make this a world war. And the U.S. and Israel are going to have it over before March is.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome in here on Live Now from Fox. The time is 7:57 on the East Coast and 4:57 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and I'll be with you for the next several hours here on this Saturday morning as we get to all of the latest on your top stories and live events. Right now, you can see there on the right-hand side of your screen a live look over Tel Aviv, Israel, as we know that sirens have been sounding once again with attacks, including a missile that struck a kindergarten.
Yes, and right now, look, they had a missile that they fired at the Diego Garcia that was able to reach 4,000 kilometers. That's not what they're firing at Israel. What they're firing at Israel are missiles they know will get intercepted, but once they are intercepted, they will then send out cluster munitions, which are smaller bombs that don't do quite as much damage as like the 1,000-pound ordnance does, but they do significant damage, specifically to structures, in an effort to cause as much collateral damage as possible. They know they don't have the extra munitions to be able to just lob hundreds at a time into Israel, which they were doing in the very beginning. Now, they have to send them sparsely with cluster munitions attached to them so that they might actually be able to hit the ground somewhere and not just get it all intercepted, because Allah is not helping them, but the Jewish God is in fact helping the Jews. So,
a bit earlier on today in the central part of Israel. We'll have much more on that coming up in just a bit. But I do want to get you to some breaking news that we are following out of all of this here, and that includes a situation at Diego Garcia, where Iran claims to have fired 2 ballistic missiles at the U.S.-UK military base there, Diego Garcia, saying that it shows...
Yeah, and we watched one kind of limp dick sputter out in the beginning, and then we also watched one get shot down by a U.S. destroyer.
The range of Iran's missiles is beyond what the enemy had previously imagined.
I don't know if you know this or not, but it's not just the U.S. aircraft carriers that are nuclear-powered. We got a lot of nuclear-powered subs. We got a lot of nuclear-powered destroyers as well, right? Like, the U.S. Navy does not run on gas anymore.
Now, the Wall Street Journal reports...
And on top of that, we don't even really get our gas through the Strait of Hormuz. The reason that we're out here doing this is because we're trying to protect the global economy, right? We're trying to protect the U.S. dollar as being the global reserve currency. That is the only reason that we are over there, not because we're actually suffering from this. This is a UK and Asia problem.
That one of the missiles failed, and a U.S. warship fired at the other, with a total of 0 missiles actually struck.
I know. Look, we dropping N-words on this channel, okay? Hard R, nuclear.
Striking that base. Now, if you're not too familiar, Diego Garcia is about 2,500 miles from Iran, which is double the range that Iran's foreign minister claimed that its ballistic missiles had just last month. Again, important to note, the missiles did not actually hit the base. Right there on your screen, you're looking at a post from Fox and Friends and from our buddy Lucas Tomlinson, who said, breaking. Iran reportedly...
No, the missiles did not hit the base, though. We are dangerously, and I do mean dangerously, because the President of the United States has given Iran 48 fucking hours to do this, or we're blowing up all of their power plants. All of them. We're going to start with the biggest one. It's going to take us 30 minutes, and it'll all be gone. That's what he said. That's not me saying that. That's him saying that, okay? So Iran is in a very dangerous situation here because not only are they making enemies of literally every country on the planet while trying to just project some sort of power, they are also going to make an enemy of every single one of their citizens. And while they are okay with killing all of their citizens in a show of force to try and keep them submissive, their problem that they've been dealing with is that they're denying internet to their citizens. And in doing that, they have cut off the amount of information their citizens have access to. So their citizens don't actually know that we're 60 people deep in the chain of succession dead right now. Right? They're not aware of just how fractured and weak the Iranian terrorist regime is. Once the power goes out, they're going to be aware of that because they're all going to take to the streets and they're going to fucking riot because people are going to get hungry. Somebody's kids are going to be starving and they're going to fucking attack. It's going to happen. There's going to be unrest. Mark my words.
We fired 2 missiles toward Diego Garcia, a joint U.S.-UK base in the Indian Ocean. The strike marks the Islamic Republic's first attempt to threaten U.S. interests beyond the Middle East. We are getting reaction coming in from all over. We actually heard from Eylon Levy, who is the former Israeli government spokesperson. He posted about it, saying if the Iranian regime's missiles can reach Diego Garcia, they can reach London.
Yes, they
the
can.
Islamic Republic is a global menace.
Yes, they can.
I do want to bring in our friend Mark Chandler to talk much more about all of this here. He is, of course, with Coastal Carolina University, as well as a former senior defense intelligence official. Mark, as always, thank you so much for being here with us.
Good morning, Josh. You're welcome. Thanks for having me today.
Of course. And first off, want to start by asking you about this situation with Diego Garcia. Of course, we know that is...
And all the countries in the UN and all the countries in the EU and in the UK and all these fucking places have all relied on the safety and protection of the United States military for so fucking long that they don't actually have any kind of defensive systems that would allow them to protect their citizens against a threat like this. So they're coming out and they're saying no to President Trump, not realizing that that is condemning their citizens to death. That's what's happening. Now, in London, we don't care too much about that because it's like a super big, like, Islamic fucking place. And so if we start lobbing missiles over there, then it's fine because they're just Tuscan Raiders, but still.
Twice the distance that Iran says its ballistic...
Right, that's also where they filmed Doctor Who, and I enjoy that show.
...missiles could be fired. Now, again, for the third time here, important to note that no missiles actually struck the base or even nearby. But what can you tell me about that?
Well, a couple of things, Josh. This shows that Iran is really taking the fight to the enemy, and that's to us. This is the first time we've used Diego Garcia for the last 20 to 30 years. Anytime we would conduct significant bombing operations in the Middle East, it shortens the range for our bombers. They don't have to fly from the United States.
It's beautiful. We can take a stop off there. The pilots can get a quick piss in. We can refuel, maybe get a burger, and then we'll be right back in the air.
And it gives us the opportunity to rapidly turn our combat operations. I believe this is the first time I can find in history that Diego Garcia has been targeted. So that tells us that Iran is pushing out. I'm not surprised by the range of the Iranian missiles. You know, we've known for some time that they've had missiles that can range into southern Europe. And
It really does put into perspective, though, just how much of an existential threat Iran was prior to Operation Midnight Hammer, prior to Operation Epic Fury, right? When Trump went in the first time and started striking all of their nuclear sites, right? And now that we're going in this time and we're hitting the military targets, we're hitting their missile launch silos, we're hitting the regime like the power plants, and we're killing the terrorist leaders and things. It really does put into perspective just how necessary this was, because not only were they very close to a nuclear weapon, they were very close to having a nuclear weapon and the ability to drop that nuclear weapon in a place like London, right? They still wasn't quite sophisticated enough to reach mainland U.S., but they clearly could have maybe reached the Diego Garcia. They could have dropped a nuke on any of the U.S. bases in the region, you know. So I, for one, am very glad that we have a president with the stones enough to be able to take care of these guys. We need to send them back into the caves where they belong, and then we need to bring the mountain down on top of them. We are tired of these people, and they need to be buried in history where they belong.
We discussed last week, working on an intercontinental ballistic missile. So it's within the ranges, but the fact that they're doing it shows that Iran is pushing this fight further out.
They're going to try, but they're running out.
The bombers on the Diego Garcia, we've been flying them from England, but if they had been lucky enough to hit the airbase, they could have gone after, say, our B-2s, B-1s, or B-52s, whatever.
U.S. Diego Garcia Air Base there in the Indian Ocean. Not quite clear if we're going to hear from British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. We know he's been making remarks on weekends as well, so if we get any of those, we will make sure to bring those to you. Now, something else that I mentioned kind of leading into this is that we've learned that a kindergarten over in central Israel was hit by a missile a bit earlier on.
God damn it, again? No fucking way, really?
If that is a missile that was fired.
This is what I'm talking about. Their objective is to cause as much collateral damage as possible. The U.S. and Israel, while they are striking Iran, they are not striking civilian areas. That missile that struck an elementary school in Iran was not a U.S. or Israel missile. It was a fucking failed Iranian missile that shot out of a silo that was located underneath the elementary school, because that's what they do. They use them as fucking meat shields. It's a PR shield. That's what it is. But Iran's, so the U.S. and Israel are attacking strategic military targets surgically. They are going into a large city like this, and they are hitting only the specific area that has the specific thing that they need to wipe out, right? Iran, on the other hand, fires missiles over into Israel, knowing damn well it'll be shot down, counting on it even, because after it gets shot down, it spread shot, buckshot styles, throws what is essentially grenades everywhere that explode on impact, right? So their object is to cause as much collateral damage as possible. They don't even care if civilians are dying. They don't care if it lands on an elementary school.
Hezbollah, which is backed, of course, by Iran out of Lebanon.
And you're going to see the fucking propagandist pieces from Iran and from the Iranian dick riders like Hassan and Casey Tron. They're going to come out and they're going to say that this wasn't even an Iranian attack, right? This was a Mossad attack where they sent their own missile, and fuck you guys. Are you kidding me?
Also, the possibility that it was fired.
They had to strike that elementary school. You don't understand, okay? Israel had an Imperial Star Destroyer underneath there, okay? It was bad. You don't know.
By Iran. I want to play for you a soundbite that just came in from the Israel Defense Forces about that before we get into the conversation.
We are here in Saturday morning. It's the weekend in Israel. Most of the people are in their homes, but you can see here the penetration of a bomb, a cluster bomb, into this kindergarten.
Yes.
Fortunately,
Thank
there
you.
weren't any kids in this garden.
Thankfully,
But just imagine
nobody
what would
was
have
there.
happened
Thankfully.
if kids were here playing, staying during their
This
day.
happened, I think. I don't know if this happened today or if it happened yesterday, so hopefully. God. Hopefully he knows, hopefully we got lucky and this happened on maybe Saturday when they were all at their synagogue or something, right?
Routine. Once again, we see that our enemy
This is why you keep the Sabbath day holy, okay? Because you got retards that'll know damn well you're not there.
aim their targets to civilian population. They try to kill and to impact as much as they can.
All right, so again, a quick soundbite right there from the
Yep.
IDF as they
That's that. Look, I said this last week, I think, and I'm going to say it again. Here's my idea. We send in a nuke, just enough to soften up the mountain, right? Like, sorry, excuse me. We send in as many B-2 bombers as we fucking can. We drop as much ordnance on the mountain as possible. We want to soften it up, right? We want to shake it loose, really, really liven it up a bit, right? And then once it's all soft, and the terrorists are like, okay, I think we're done. I think our tunnels actually lasted. That's when you drop the nuke, right? You just vaporize everything, but you got to get rid of the first few layers of mountain first, just so you know it really penetrates. You know, what we're gonna do is we're gonna attach a nuclear warhead to the bunker buster bombs. That way, it busts the bunker and then busts open the mountain full. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome.
on the scene there of that kindergarten.
The U.S. has dropped 2 nuclear warheads in our life, and the nukes that we have now are far stronger than what they were back then.
Struck. And I guess, Mark, that brings up kind of the point once again that we've heard time and time again, that Iran and these terror proxies are not just targeting military sites, because you have to imagine that there was not a military site for Israel in that kindergarten building. So they are targeting civilians rather than military sites.
They're targeting anything and everything. That's the thing, right? Like, it's not necessarily anything specific because they don't have a targeting system that is sophisticated enough to be able to do that. That's why you have missiles that misfire a lot with them. Their propulsion systems are shit. Their targeting systems are shit. That's why they use drones, and that's why they use cluster munitions, because they can lob it into the general area, but they know you're going to shoot it down, and they don't have enough munitions to be able to lob more than one. So they lob the one, and then once it's shot down, it fractures and hits as many things as possible. And in this case, it happened to be, unfortunately, an elementary school that, fortunately, nobody was there.
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. And I think you brought up an excellent point. You know, determining where this missile came from, whether it came from Hezbollah or came from Iran itself, shows that they are escalating this. You know, Iran is kind of, I'll say, taking the gloves off. They have gone after a lot of civilian targets, especially in Israel, and along with their partner Hezbollah. You know, Hezbollah.
They are doing everything they can to destroy Israel because that is their ultimate goal.
Launched several hundred missiles and rockets since the beginning of this combat operation. So you can see that. And Iran this week, you know, escalated in the fact that they went after some refineries in Israel. And now they've gone after, this is not the first time.
This is why we've destroyed Karg Island, and in another 24 hours, we will destroy all of their power plants, too, because Trump gave them 48 hours, and you better fucking believe hour 49, their power is gone. We did it to Cuba. I swear to God, we'll do it to you.
For civilian targets, and they're going to
only with Cuba, we did it a little differently. We just didn't give them energy.
Continue to do so. What they changed. Now, remember that Israel has an excellent air defense, anti-ballistic, anti-drone capability, but it's not infallible. So when we look at that, Iran has gone to using cluster munitions. And that's what the IDF spokesman was talking about.
So this guy's about to explain to you exactly what I have been explaining to you for the past 15 minutes.
What happens here is these actually open up, if you will, in flight over their target area and makes it almost impossible to take out all the different sub-munitions that come out of a warhead.
Yeah.
So now we have to worry about how that's doing. And there's been several Israeli deaths throughout this week based on these cluster munitions. They're more effective and they're really indiscriminate. Iran is just indiscriminately targeting and trying to inflict as much pain on Israel as possible.
Yes, they fucking are, okay? They are indiscriminately targeting civilian areas. They are indiscriminately targeting civilian areas not only in Israel, but also in countries that were originally not part of this war, because their objective is to make it too much of a PR nightmare to attack them. Their objective is to make it too much of a cost to obliterate this terrorist regime. And The Trump administration is not going to put up with this shit any longer. They also know that they cannot realistically let this war, or conflict, I should say, rather, last longer than a month. Maybe a month and a week max.
This time, it's more of a threat.
The U.S. is going to be done with this, whether Israel is or is not done with it, because they cannot be dealing with this when they go into the midterms. And honestly, I don't think it's going to take that long. We're watching the last gasps of a dying demon here.
To Israel when they're using these cluster munitions, and that's their primary target. Take out as many civilians, make it painful for the Israeli population, and
they're a stray dog that has been backed into a corner, and so they're just kind of lashing out wildly at anything. But in reality, they're about to just be shot in the head.
Turn this fight into Iran's favor, or at least get the sentiment going for Iran out here.
I'm going to pop this up on your screen. This is just coming in from the Israeli Air Force, as they say, during an operational mission of the Air Force over Iranian airspace, a surface-to-air missile launch was detected toward an Israeli fighter jet.
Oh.
The crew acted in accordance with procedures. No damage caused to the aircraft, and the mission was completed as planned since the start.
Hell yeah! Air Force out here doing it. Outrunning surface-to-air missiles and shit. Fuck yeah.
Part of the war, several attempts have
been... Iran's coming out and trying to say that they had a surface-to-air missile actually shoot down an a U.S. Air Force F-35 Lightning. Like, no, I don't think that's what happened.
Made to strike Israeli fighter jets over Iranian airspace, and the air crews have successfully countered the threat.
Here's the thing. They had nuclear power plants in Iran. They had them. And their objective was, or well, their PR thing was, we need nuclear power just like everybody needs nuclear power. And that's fine. But if you're going to have a nuclear power plant, then you only need to enrich the uranium to somewhere between 3 and 5%. Like, it really all just depends, right? You don't need to go any higher than that. If you go any higher than that, there is only one fucking reason. And they were at like 60 or so before we started bombing shit. But yeah, no, look, I'm fine with them having a nuclear power plant. I'm not fine with them having a nuclear warhead.
The Air Force will.
And if they have a nuclear power plant, then they have the ability to enrich uranium. And if they have the ability to enrich uranium, then they have the ability to create a nuclear warhead.
Continue to fly and strike wherever required across Iran, and will complete its missions under threat in every operational sort.
Now, I prefer the idea where we just send in Delta Force or some SEALs or we send in some Marine recon snipers or whatever. It doesn't matter. We send in a small tactical force. We put boots on the ground and we take out the heads of state as needed. Right? Done. We escort the new regime in. We let him do his thing. Anybody that wants to come out and try and kill him, we kill them. We allow the Iranian people to come out and start defending their own place. We maybe even arm them. We give them whatever resources they require. We can give them food. We can give them water. We can give them blankets and shit. Right? We can give them guns and weapons. We can do whatever they need for us to do to install this. I am for that plan. Mostly because it gets it done faster and more efficiently, but
it's interesting here because we're talking about, the Israeli Air Force, the Israeli military, as they are conducting these different strikes. And it appears that Israel and the U.S. as well have not stopped any of these. These are still happening on those military sites. We're not necessarily hearing as much about it, but it is still happening pretty much day after day.
Yeah, because you'd think, listen, if you're looking at a military base, you would think that the objective, or at least the target, is the entire base, right? Like, you'd want the entire base to be leveled. That's not what they're doing. They're going in, they're attacking only the specific part of the base that holds the nuclear warhead, only the specific part of the base that houses the ballistic missiles, only the specific part of the base that houses their communication structure, or whatever. They're not going and just leveling the base because they're wanting to minimize the amount of casualties, collateral casualties anyway, as possible. That is what the U.S. and Israel are doing. That is the opposite of what Iran is doing, and that is why it is okay that we are killing these terrorists.
Yeah, it is, Josh, and I think that's important.
That is also why the U.S. and Israel doing what they are doing does not actually make them terrorists in any way.
For your audience to understand. This is day 21 of the fighting out there. We're still a few weeks out from having a complete military success, I will call it, in the combat operations. We're rolling back and hitting their C2 command and control targets. We're definitely having a lot of success in decapitating Iranian leadership. We've taken out several key leaders over the last 3 weeks, and each time a new replacement pops up, they're obviously going after those, both the U.S. and Israel. But it's not,
Yeah.
an easy mission. And you listen to that IAF report right there, you can see that the Iranians still have combat capability. The attack on the kindergarten today, the attack on Diego Garcia, air defense attacks. Earlier in the week, it was reported, although the Pentagon's not talking a lot about it, that a U.S. F-35 was likely attacked with a surface-to-air missile. So there is still that capability within.
Yeah, they're not talking a lot about it because it's not been confirmed whether or not it was attacked by a surface-to-air missile, and I really don't think that it was.
Iran. So it's going to take time to roll these back. You're going to see a methodical approach to continue to go after.
And if somebody did fire a surface-to-air missile at an F-35, it didn't make contact because there's no way.
Iran's offensive weapon capability and some of their defensive weapon capabilities. Fortunately, the United States, Israel has some of the greatest pilots, greatest aircraft in the world to be able to combat this, but they are.
Yeah, but we over here at the U.S., you understand, we have, the first and second best air forces. Check on the rep. Yep, second to none.
Also are not infallible. So you're going to see some problems with this happen, just as they hit that F-35 possibly, but they were able to recover the aircraft, get it back into friendly territory on that. So we're going to see this. One thing to note, Josh, is that this week we were able to start using the A-10 Warthog and the AH-64.
I don't know if you guys can see it, but right across the bottom, they're saying Trump says U.S. achieving goals, war could wind down soon. I don't want to say that I called it, but someone better pick up the fucking phone because I called it. We're not going to be going into April doing this. And likewise, the terrorist regime in Iran will also not get to see April. Now, we still got a week left. There's still like some stragglers, but we'll clean them up. Don't worry. War's going to wind down soon.
Got some IRGC fast boats.
God, I fucking love being right, dude. I'm right all the time. I'm ahead of the news all the time. I called ICE going into the airports 2 days before it happened, mostly because I don't want them to let Hassan Piker back into the country. But whatever, definitely subscribe to me to be ahead of all the things.
Along the coastline in the Persian Gulf. So that does show we have a lot of air superiority capabilities, and because those are slower flying, slower aircraft, but now we're able to bring more aircraft into the fight and allow the fighters that can go deeper and the bombers to go deeper into Iran and hit these other targets that
Did he say go deeper? Ooh.
Just talked about.
And I've been showing this video that's been released by CENTCOM.
Listen, I heard this story. Mohammed knows an awful lot about going deeper, particularly with darker-skinned individuals, and particularly in the desert.
Been releasing videos, I would say, and of course we're talking about U.S. Central Command, videos pretty much several
He was gangbanged. He was gangbanged in the desert by a bunch of huge black cock guys, okay?
Times a day, and I'm going to pop one of them up again right here. How significant for you personally and maybe for the public is it to be able to see these videos of the strikes on...
That is why dogs are not allowed in his house. They'd go to sniff his ass and their nose would get stuck.
on different Iranian strongholds as well as Hezbollah as well.
Well, I think it's important. A large part of this fight is information, is managing the information flow out there. This shows the consistent success that the U.S. is having, when Israel publishes its videos that they're having. It would be great if this information could get to the Iranian people. That would send a strong message of what is being destroyed. You got to realize the internet is virtually shut down. About 99+% of the internet and the information flow in Iran is cut off to their people. So they don't.
Yep, this is what I said. Like, they don't actually know what is going on. They're not being kept up to speed the way that the rest of us are. That's why it's so important for channels like mine to actually come out and cover this, and that way they may or may not be able to see it. Hopefully, with enough people echoing this information, it'll get through to the somebody that is in Iran, and hopefully they'll be able to spread that message farther and farther. Because currently the Iranian regime is not allowing internet access to any civilians. They get to see only what they are fucking told to see, and currently that's the Iranian propaganda, right?
The devastation that is being rained down on the Iranian military. So this just shows that we're pushing back, we're continuing those attacks, but it is critical that you get this information flow. It builds the confidence in your forces. But I think it also shows that that success is taking place. There is one caveat. You know, we want our information fast, and we want solutions fast in the West and in America.
I wonder if they're actually going to read this. Apparently, Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary to Donald Trump, came out on Twitter and said a couple of things. Since day one of Operation Epic Fury, President Trump clearly outlined the U.S. military's objectives to end the threat of the Iranian terrorist regime. Hell yes, brother. The president and the Pentagon predicted it would take approximately 4 to 6 weeks to achieve this mission. Tomorrow marks week 3, and the U.S. armed forces are doing an exceptional job day by day. The Iranian regime is being crippled, and their ability to threaten the United States and our allies is being significantly weakened. As always, President Trump is laser focused on one thing: total and complete victory, baby. Hell yeah, W. All right, anyway.
So as we publish this, we just have to realize that this is still a long fight to go, and you're going to see a lot more videos like this come out to prove that. I just, as I said, wish we could get them to the Iranian people so that they could start to see the weakness, you know, of this entire military regime and the Islamic regime inside Iran. But we're going to continue to push that back.
And what you're looking at now is a post from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. She actually quote tweeted what essentially is a post from President Trump on social media, as he said, "We are getting very close to meeting our objectives as we consider winding down our great military efforts in the Middle East with respect to the terrorist regime of Iran." Now, he goes on to list some of the missions.
Oh, sorry, Teabag. So he at about like 7:45 or something on Saturday afternoon is when he did it. So 7:45 in the afternoon tomorrow will be 48 hours.
There, but what a lot
now that's U.S. time. I have no idea what the time difference is in Australia.
People have kind of taken away from this is that they could consider winding down the military efforts. What do you take away from that overall? What could we actually see kind of play out if this were to quote unquote wind down?
Well, one thing I would just encourage.
Dude said 22 hours left.
Encourage everyone to have is patience. You know, close is a relative term, you know, and it's how the president wants to portray operations.
Dude, I'm telling you, he specifically said it would take us 30 minutes to destroy their entire power grid. So hour 49, Iran goes dark.
But I would say that we're perhaps a month out for being able to one, successfully roll back the complete Iranian offensive military capability. So you've got to give these military operations. The videos are great. It shows complete destruction. Earlier, they destroyed an entire Iranian ballistic missile production facility. So that means Iran's not going to have any capability going forward to produce.
Yep, that's why they're firing one at a time with cluster munitions attached to the fucking top of it, because they can't afford to send more than one. They legitimately can't. They had drones for a while, but we're not allowing them to receive more shipments from Russia or China, so they don't have more of those either. They are quickly running out of all of their munitions, and they're doing whatever they can to hold on to whatever power they can.
And replace these ballistic missiles they're fighting. But what we have to do, and I think it's important right now to understand, is that we have to set the conditions for the Iranian regime removal. And
Oh my God, tomorrow is going to be absolutely wild. If you don't know, absolutely join my stream on Kick, kick.com/Sestel. We're covering all of this. We're chronicling the downfall of the terrorist regime.
we can't do that through air power. So air power has to open up. An opportunity
Join me tomorrow when the United States takes out the Iranian power grid.
for people to coalesce around some entity inside Iran and overthrow this regime. You know, it's steadfast in its theocratic stronghold on the government, on the people out there, and it's supported almost lockstep by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. Islamic Revolutionary Guard. So you have to break that apart, and we are weeks away from that. And the threat on the Straits of Hormuz. We have to solidify and secure that.
Are we seeing enough being done?
If we can get Starlink into the Iranian people, I think we would be much closer than weeks away. Because then the people would know exactly how fractured and weak their tyrannical fucking regime that controls them is. And they would actually rise up and take these motherfuckers out.
in the Strait of Hormuz.
Because at this point, we're looking at just a few, like a couple handfuls maybe, of powerful people in powerful positions. That's it. Like, that's all. Everybody else is dead, okay? The Ayatollah is dead. The Ayatollah 2.0 is dead. Ayatollah 2.0 Jr. is dead. Okay, all of his officials, they're dead. There is no Ayatollah, okay? We have all the cards. They have no cards.
Topic that you and I have discussed a lot. It's been discussed a lot in the media in general and by President Trump as he's answered questions about it. So is enough being done by the U.S. and by other NATO allies?
Well, I'll put it this way. You know, there is
NATO's not doing a goddamn thing, but they're going to start soon because they're going to realize the ramifications.
no hiding the global impact of.
Yeah, well, global is relative because by global you mean Europe and Asia fucked on this. The U.S. gets their oil from many other places.
Straits of Hormuz being shut down.
As a matter of fact, the U.S. is opening up a new oil refinery, I believe, in Texas.
You know, but it is something that we have known in every operation I helped plan, in every operation that we've
Probably
conducted.
taking crude from Venezuela, taking it up right past Cuba and waving at them on the way. And then we're going to refine it in Texas, and then we're going to take it back down to Venezuela to give it to them. And we're going to wave at Cuba again on the way because we don't supply oil, refined or otherwise, to communist regimes.
Since the 1980s, that the Straits of Hormuz was a global weak point if any combat operations. As long as you have this regime in place in Iran, the Straits of Hormuz are always going to be a global weak point out there, and something that Iran.
So a lot of people don't understand that the Strait of Hormuz. Hang on, let me see if I can move my avatar. Here we go. Strait of Hormuz. Okay, do you see this little bump right here, kind of in between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman? Okay, that is the Strait of Hormuz. It is a small, narrow waterway that all of the tankers have to pass through. It makes it incredibly easy for any regime, weekend or otherwise, to blow up tankers in that region. Think of like the 300. Right, from the movie, those 300 Spartans, they were able to funnel all of the Persians that were coming down into a very small area, and they were able to actually kill hundreds, or maybe tens of thousands of them, because they can only send so many through at a time. So because most of the world's, or at least most of the world's oil travels through the Strait of Hormuz, it's going to cause a huge impact on the people that get their oil from this strait.
Will continue to hold hostage. It has throughout time. You leave this regime in place, you still have that threat over the Straits of Hormuz. You know, before the fighting, about 100 ships a day were getting through. Since the fighting, since 1 March, maybe 100 ships have gotten through in and out total. So you're going to see.
Yes, but is that due to Iran, or is that due to the insurance companies saying, listen, dog, I'm not going to cover you if you go through the strait?
this, and you're going to see Iran continue to play.
See, this is a bigger one of it. Okay, we got the Islamic Republic of Iran right up here. Saudi Arabia and Iraq and shit are over here. You got Azerbaijan, Bahrain, that stuff down here, right? UAE and stuff. And they're all really close. And Iran is throwing missiles at them for no reason at all because they don't want to allow oil tankers to pass through this small waterway here. Now, why Iran controls it, I have no idea. We really should let someone else do that.
This factor up out there. Is enough being done? Well, what you saw this...
Perhaps the United States will set up a toll on either side. We'll also set up some sort of a travel centers in the middle, complete with a Hooters and a strip club.
Week is the U.S. start to transition.
Also a Burger King, because we can deploy those anywhere in the world within 24 hours.
Its targeting effort against the coastline areas to start to take back or roll back the Iranian offensive capability against the Straits. But that's only part of what has to happen out there. You know, to fully secure it and to fully get things going, you have to look at taking out all the coastal sites. There's several islands in the southern part of the Straits of Hormuz. I will say Abu Musa, Greater and Lesser Toom, Siri Island are all out there and militarized by the Iranians. So they...
Not for much longer, big guy. These are going to be empty-ass islands very soon. The USS Tripoli is on its way with 2,500 capable Marines that are not needed to sail this boat because they don't count toward the crew of the USS Tripoli.
We've got the offensive capability.
We're also sending A-10 Warthogs. We're also sending Apache helicopters. So there's going to be some sort of beachfront somewhere. There's going to be some sort of beachhead that we are going to be securing for the United States. And this is just going to be where it's at.
Those islands to attack ships. Keshem Island near Bandar Abbas.
Yep.
All of that is militarized. That has to be rolled back.
That sounds like an awful lot of potential United States territories that we have over there.
And the U.S. right now is the only country rolling those particular targets back.
Goddamn right we're the only ones rolling that back, and we're going to roll them right over into our country, baby. You watch.
Israel focuses, farther to the north. So do you want to get ships through there? We've conducted escort operations before, but we've always had partners in doing that.
Yeah, A-10 Warthogs are really good at turning entire convoys into pink dust. Right, like you know what? You know how we're dropping like bombs and we're just blowing up the narco ships that are coming in from South America, or trying to anyway, right? Like, you know how we've been blowing those up for a while. Not everybody talks about it anymore, but we're still doing that. Imagine if we just send the A-10 instead, right? Instead of hitting it with one bomb, just vaporize the boat with the A-10's fucking guns.
And what we see right now,
the A-10 Warthog is a literal flying tank. So if they were to shoot back at the plane, it probably would do nothing.
No one's coming to the front to say, okay, we're going to put ships in there and help protect this oil getting through and ensure that...
Oh, they will soon. You fucking watch, because Iran just decided to throw a rocket at the UK at a distance that makes London kind of sweat a little bit, because it's within range, apparently, of what Iran was capable of at least one time. So while they are coming out and saying, no, please don't hit us, we're bitches, they are also likely going to have to posture a little bit for their citizenry. So
traffic can get through, even though the United States doesn't get its oil from Iran or through the Straits of Hormuz. These other countries do. I noticed in the last couple of days there's been a pledge of about 20 countries saying they want to ensure safe passage, but not any of those 20 countries have said they're going to put ships in there to support that.
Yep, Japan is now, though, baby. Fuck yeah, they are.
U.S. can't do that alone. Right now, we can't divert any of our shipping from our offensive operations to conduct these complex convoy escort operations. So we need...
That's partly why the USS Tripoli is on its way over there, I would think, but...
We need people who are benefiting from the Straits of Hormuz to step up and start supporting this, or Iran's going to continue to hold this stranglehold.
Got to ask you, because we're looking to the future here. We heard, as I mentioned, from President Trump, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, about exactly what happens next. We've heard from Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Dan Raisin-Kane, a lot of different folks about where we go from here. So
pretty simple. We send the military in, they accomplish their objectives, and then we leave. Right? Like, it's pretty simple, right?
what are you
The reason there was a quote-unquote forever war in fucking Iraq and Afghanistan for the past 20 years is because there was no actual stated objective. The objective was to go over there and fucking be there. Right now, the objective is to destroy the terrorist regime and everything associated with it militarily. And we're really close.
Watching in the coming days and potentially weeks here as we watch this play out?
No, I mean, sure, potentially weeks, but potential is not the same as probable. You know what I mean? Like,
well, Josh, I'd go with what am I going to watch for in weeks as we work our way through this. Again, it's a methodical military campaign. It takes time. You know, I'll go back to 23 years ago yesterday. We began our ground operations for Operation Iraqi Freedom. You know, it took us weeks to get into where we were doing ground combat operations, air support operations, all of that, to defeat the Iraqi military. Different scenario, but we're not even at the point right now where we were.
But we had a pussy bitch president back then, though, right? Like, we had a Republican president, but that Republican president also likely orchestrated the very terrorist attack that caused the general public to be on board with that shit.
Whole overall attack on Iraq and success that we had there. So give it more time. We have to hit the Straits of Hormuz more. We have to start to push that back to help open up that commercial shipping to go through there. But as I said, we're going to need some outside support to go in there and kind of get those ships safely through there. It's a three-dimensional kind of threat that Iran has against shipping: air attacks from missiles and drones, subsurface attacks from mines that they can put in the water, and surface attacks from these fast boats that we're taking out. So
listen. The only actual threat of the things that the guy just listed, the only actual threat are the subsurface mines, right? Everything else, fuck them. Like those speedboats with machine guns, now that the A-10 is over there, they're fucking worthless. They're absolute dog turds, okay? The ballistic missiles, also absolute dog turds. Why? Because they've had to resort to spread shot type style missiles, okay? Like, they're on their last legs. The only actual threat and the only thing that's actually keeping the tankers from getting through are the subsurface mine. And the reason that the U.S. wants the U.K. to get into this and send ships down there is because they have extremely sophisticated mine-sweeping ships that the U.S. has not actually had to put money into, because we don't deal with close-quarters naval combat like that. We're more of a blue ocean type naval force where we can project power, not coastal where we have to deal with mines. So the UK actually has really sophisticated mine-sweeping ships that would be really easy for them to be able to come in and get rid of all of the danger with minimal risk to themselves.
Concerted effort to go against that. You're going to see more leadership attacks.
They're like bitches about it, because if the UK sends a ship down there to start taking out the mines, they're worried that the Iranian regime is going to start firing missiles at the ship. Like, that's really what they're worried about. And I don't think they have anything to be concerned about, but Iran now having shot a missile 4,000 fucking kilometers to the Diego Garcia kind of has them a bit on edge.
Both Israel and the United States. I think Israel's having the most success with better intelligence focused on taking out any Iranian leader or new leader who pops up. We've got to do that to fracture the Islamic Republic's stranglehold on the people and crack open that IRGC relationship out there. And then we have to continue to go after Iran's offensive missile capability and their drone capability. Thousands of missiles that Iran had at the start of this fighting, you know, they fired several hundred, we killed several hundred, which means they still have hundreds in their inventory. You're going to have...
Yeah, but only 100, you know? Like, come on.
Attacks on Israel, and we're going to have to push back. This week we saw an escalation with the Israeli attack, which I think was kind of a miscalculation on the South Pars gas field.
Meh.
And Iran opened up a widespread escalation going after all the Gulf states' oil production capabilities. So you're going to have to look at that and keeping that escalation kind of contained.
Imagine what Iran is not going to be able to do the moment they don't have power. Right? Like, sure, they might have some backup generators, but assumedly those backup generators also run on diesel or gas of some kind, which we are not allowing them to produce. We're not allowing them to import, and they're not going to have power from any other region. So, you know, it's going to be wild trying to see what they can't do anymore once they no longer have the lights.
And if Iran wants to go after Diego Garcia again, I think you're going to have to start to bring some other countries into this fight. So that's kind of what I'm seeing progressing over the several weeks. Note that we do have new information about the 11th MEU out of California going to start to transit into the region. That's going to take about 20 days. About 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, we had the 31st MEU coming out of Okinawa, Japan. They should be in the region early part of next week. That gives us more options. And I don't want to say boots on the ground at this time or ground force operations.
They should be in the region early part of next week. That means maybe Monday, right? That means maybe tomorrow. That means Trump's 48-hour window ends on the very same day that likely USS Tripoli shows up, because we already know it was over in the South China Sea fucking 5 days ago. So around the time USS Tripoli shows up, around the time the Japanese ship shows up, and around the time likely we convince the UK to get in this fight as well. So it's weird how all of this is lining up in a way that would be very, very, very bad for the tyrannical terrorist motherfuckers that have been in charge for the last 50 years.
But some of those small islands I talked to you about earlier, you know, how do we seize those? Maybe go against Karg Island, although we can kind of control Iran's access to that from the air. Where is that unlocated enriched uranium? So there's our ground force options I believe the Pentagon is starting to discuss based on certain sources. Those are complex and complicated and will take weeks to plan and then execute. That takes this fight to a little bit different level. I am not talking about a ground invasion the size of what we had for Operation Iraqi Freedom. I'm talking about limited objectives. But we still have to set the conditions, and hopefully within 2 to 3 weeks, we create that crack in the Iranian Islamic Republic leadership that allows the people to start to move.
The reason that we're not sending so many troops in like this is because the Iranian regime is not above nuking Tehran. Like, if we send a bunch of U.S. soldiers into the capital city of Iran, they take over every building, they install a new government, yada, 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 but we still have thousands of troops there for various reasons, right? The current Iranian regime is not above blowing up that entire fucking city just to kill all of those soldiers, right? Does not matter that their citizens are there. Does not matter that it's their capital city. Does not matter that it is the most densely populated place in the country. What matters is that they kill the U.S. Soldiers, right? So that's the problem here.
The people to move against that regime.
And actually, before I let you go, I wanted to ask you about the executions that took place there. We know that 3 people were publicly hanged. As far as that, what kind of message are the Iranian regime members?
Look, as far as the executions go, Trump fucking told them. He said, you better stop executing your people or we're going to go in there and we're going to start helping them. And then Iran executed like 30,000 fucking people. So that was cool.
They are trying to send by publicly executing those protesters, including a champion wrestler who was actually fairly well known in that area.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
local celebrity. They execute the local celebrity because he was against the regime. Oh, man, it's almost like this is their playbook.
Question, you know, tragic execution of this wrestler, a 19-year-old, a teenager. He participated in some of those protests earlier in the year. You know, he's on their national wrestling team, and they executed him, along with 2 other individuals that same day. Those are not the only executions they conducted this week. So the messaging that the Islamic Republic is sending is that the regime is still in charge. and they are going to control and stomp out any, through executions, public executions, anyone. There's been reports of at least 500 people taken prisoner since the fighting started. I would tell you it's more than that.
Probably, and a lot of the people that have been taken prisoner are people that were part of the military ranks. They're being accused of being spies for the U.S. and for Israel. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. I would imagine they do have spies within their ranks, but I don't know. There's lots and lots of infighting here, and everybody that has been at the head of the snake is dead now. So I don't think there is somebody at the head of the snake, and so I think that like a lot of these limbs, right, are just kind of flailing off wildly, doing whatever each one of them thinks is best.
Along with the 10 to 30,000 they executed earlier in the year, based on those protests. The regime is still in charge, and people in the West have a hard time understanding just how draconian that they are in how they're going to keep the people down.
Nope, I don't have a hard time understanding that at all. I understand it perfectly, sir, and it is my job to make sure that the people who don't understand it do. That's why I cover things like this. Definitely subscribe to me.
It's hard to imagine that you don't have this freedom of expression at all in this kind of regime like we have in the West. So they're going to continue to execute people as long as they're in charge. I will say that some of the strikes that Israel had when they killed Laranjani earlier in the week, and the Basij commander, their internal security commander.
Okay, so apparently this is a 19-year-old wrestler, Sola Mohammadi, whatever, I don't know, who the terrorist regime in Iran just executed. This is who the mullahs are, okay? Terroristic savages willing to slaughter their own people to maintain their grip on power. Just imagine what the mullahs would do to you. I'm fucking well aware. I am on board with killing all these people. I have been for a very long time. And I've been saying it for a very long time as well.
That starts to send a message that maybe, we can crack that and take out some of that.
Yeah, this is not, over there is not the United States, okay? Over there is not somewhere where you can say whatever the fuck you want and not be punished for it. You're not going to get into some, a government official's face over there and start fucking screaming at them. That's not something that you're going to do because they'll just kill you. And honestly, if you sing in public, they'll kill you. If you take off your sheet over your head that you have over your head, if you take that shit off, they will kill you. If you like boys, they will kill you. If you steal, they will cut off your hand. Are you following along?
Security control. But again, we're a couple of weeks out from the people having any kind of opening or even feeling safe to go out on the streets and try to do something, because they will be executed on the spot, taken prisoner. It's just hard to understand.
Yeah, and Stormy, it really sucks because Aladdin's like one of my favorite Disney movies.
From the Western perspective, how much control and how authoritarian and dramatic they are not dramatic, but draconian they are in killing their own citizens.
And this is actually a post from the House Republicans there with a photo of Soleil Mohammadi, who is that 19-year-old wrestler who was executed by, as you see, quote, terrorist regime in Iran. Again, a public hanging there, and we are following the developments as there are fears that there could be even more of these public executions in the near future.
Yep, typical Republicans standing up for those that are oppressed. Been that way since the beginning of their party. I don't think it's ever going to change. That's fucking weird.
Mark Chandler, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here and helping to break down all of the latest developments. Only so much ground that we can cover here, but anything else that you want to make sure to mention about any of this before I let you go?
Josh,
Nah, you got it wrong, Stormy. They wanted to cut off his hands, but he was one jump ahead of the bread line, one swing ahead of the sword. He steals only what he can afford. And unfortunately, that's everything.
Just two things. Earlier you and I had a conversation, and we talked about, or I talked about, how we need to look at the success of this operation long term and have that patience. Tactically and operationally, the United States and Israel are having tremendous military success on the ground, but we have to see this through to conclusion. Look at the evidence of the Straits of Hormuz and the impact that has globally, and even domestically here We cannot leave that regime in place anymore. It will feel emboldened. It will tout a victory against.
Let me explain to you the effect here of them shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, this is one of the largest intersections, let's say, of that oil has to cross in the maritime space. Right. This is inarguably the largest geopolitical choke point on the planet. And for the U.S., gasoline has gone up $1 per gallon. That is all. That's it. And in fact, in some places, it's a little less than that. So put that into perspective for you. Okay, it is shut down entirely over there. It has been for like a month. And the U.S., $1 per gallon more. That's it.
Israel and the United States, and it will continue, its destabilizing effects and threats, not only to the region, but global impact. And then finally, I know I say this a lot, but domestically, we need to ensure that we are aware of our surroundings. You look at TSA doing great jobs.
I would fucking love to, but unfortunately, we have half of the political parties in this country trying to keep money from going to the people that protect this country's homeland, okay? It's fucking wild to me, but I'm glad they were able to take my advice and send ICE and stop people that support terrorists from coming back.
That they're doing under limited capabilities right now, but there is a threat that happens at those airports. So we have to be alert. We have to be alert domestically on travel and in large gatherings. I just tell people, once again, if you see something suspicious, you need to say something or alert the authorities.
Absolutely. 100%. Definitely subscribe to them. Definitely like this video. It will be linked in the description of my video while you're on YouTube. Why have you watched this whole video without subscribing? Come on now. What are you doing? Anyway, like the video, comment your favorite part, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks.